Working here, so give me a thumbs up if you can hear me over on the YouTube feed as well as on the Facebook feed. I just want to make sure that I can see everyone here, so bear with me here while I just make sure. Sometimes, as you know, the Facebook feed lags behind just a bit, so I want to make sure that Facebook, I can see you guys commenting, that's great. So let me just see if I can find my feed here, so just bear with me. There we go, I can see it, and I will be able to see you in 3, 2, and 1. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. As I said earlier, I'm Kate Richburg, and welcome to Beadshop Live, our regular Wednesday broadcast. It's great to have everyone here. It's been quite a week, as you know. It's been busy. Where the great news is a couple of things on the Beadshop front here. We've been really catching up with orders. Karen and Jordan have been coming in and getting a lot of orders done, and a lot of things are happening. We're planning all kinds of really fun things behind the scenes. So it's been a real, I don't know, kind of a real boost, I guess I want to say, like a kind of a, it gives one hope, I guess. So we have a really wonderful monthly mix ready for you guys for July. I should have brought the sneak peek, but I already took it home to work with a project on it. And we have new things that we had a tiara cast launch yesterday, these great earrings. And I'll give you a peek if you haven't seen them. I'll show you the photo on my phone. That's what we're going to do on Friday. So I know, you guys, things are still heavy around our world. We're still battling that worldwide pandemic. There have been protests and a lot of feelings that everyone's feeling. So I really appreciate this time that we get to spend together, though I don't get to see you every day like we were doing during Kate's Creative Connections. I feel like we are making these connections from all around the world. So I'm very, very grateful for that, as I know everyone here at beadshop.com is as well. We've got Gita all the way over in Denmark doing the moderating over on our Facebook feed, and we've got Janice, and I think Drea is here somewhere. My mom is here. Everyone's here. Everyone's here at the table. Which is great. So we just want to reiterate that here at the Bead Table, we are thankful for each and every one of you. So that being said, let's, Kim says, we're having a flash of normalcy. Well, just a flash, really. I mean, as things slowly get back to normal, I think that some things, we've learned so many things in these past few weeks that are going to change our world, I think, for hopefully for the better. So we'll see. Well, anyway, let's get on to beading, shall we? Because I know that's what everyone is here for. And you guys have seen my buddy Krista Hennessy, our buddy, all of our buddies, not just my buddy, I can't claim her myself. And I know she's here somewhere. I haven't seen her comment yet. But Krista has been on the show with me a couple of different times. We did a couple of fun things with her. One is the really fun project we did, the Peyote Stitch. She came in and chatted with me on that one. And then we also did, I think it was a free tip Friday, and I promised Drea yesterday, I've been kind of, I feel like I'm juggling everything, right? But there was I think it might have been a free tip Friday when we pulled out, I handed Krista a whole bunch of bins and I said, go pull some color palettes, Krista, and then we kind of broke them down and talked about color and stuff. So I know, I think that that it was on a free tip Friday, and I'm sure that someone will find it and link it. But it was really cool. Oh, and I see her. She's there on the YouTube. Perfect. One of the things that I think I really took away from that project, and I think we all sometimes kind of struggle with a little bit, is color. Now, that would be a great one to watch, and also it's under, on our homepage on beadshop.com, under learning, it's under masterclass. When Cynthia Thornton was here from Green Girl Studios, and you can see I still have her little watercolor that's sitting here that reminds me of her, we had a lot of fun also talking about color and design. And I think that color and design is a super personal thing, right? I mean, it's your piece, you're creating this piece, whatever it is, a necklace or a bracelet or whatever. And so you're throwing your aesthetic into it. So one of the things I like to tell people when they're kind of struggling with color, or, how do I begin or how do I start? And it circles back to this, so just bear with me here. There is a point, I do have one, and I'll make it. But when we would have customers come into the brick and mortar bead stores at the Beadshop in Palo Alto or Bedissimo, my store in San Francisco, people would come in and they'd have their hands behind their backs, right? And they'd be looking at the beads like this, like, ooh, aren't they so super pretty? But they wouldn't touch anything. And so when people would come in and they're like, I really want to make something, but I don't know what it is. First thing I would tell people, and it's what I told Krista when I handed her those bins and I said, girl, go pull some, we're going to be on in like 15 minutes, go pull some beads, some color palettes. She got her hands on the beads, right? And so that, I think, is, if you don't know where to start with any of our projects, and we've got a lot of new people in our bead shop group, the bead table, and a lot of people are asking, where should I start, or what projects should I start with? I would even say, don't even think about a project yet. Get your hands on those beads. I know that all of you all, everybody watching, has at least one bead in their collection, right? You have at least one thing, a pendant or a clasp or a bunch of beads or stuff in bags or whatever. My challenge to you is to get those beads out of the bags or out of the boxes or out of the bins and just start touching them. Be tactical, tactile, not tactical, tactile. Feel them. And start creating these color palettes. I always joke about how before I do these broadcasts, I'm not always prepared, and I just kind of fly through the fulfillment room and grab things off the wall. Well, sometimes that necessity is the mother of invention, right? I leave myself only a small window because, kids, I could be in that fulfillment room all day pulling beads and looking at them and looking at, oh, this one's this and this one's this. And it is, my mom just commented in the Facebook feed, she said that's how she does it with fabric. And that's really how I learned it, was, quilting with my mom. We call that auditioning the fabrics. We take the fabrics out and we just pull them out of, I'm not saying that my mom has a fabric store in her quilt room, but that's actually what I'm saying. And you pull those things out, right? Pull it out, pull it out, pull it out. And then you just stack them and you look at the color. Right now I'm building a mini mix for you guys. It's going to be out in a few weeks, and Faye doesn't know it, but I've used her, and so Faye, I was going to email you, so I might as well tell you just now on air. That wonderful brightly colored photo that you posted in our group, that's my inspiration. So I'm going to contact you to help me name it, actually. But I just pull all the beads, pull, even if I think it doesn't work, right? And then you can, in the words of, maybe it was Coco Chanel, take off one thing or start to take away a few things, you know, in your accessories to create the total picture, and the total picture will start to emerge. That's the way that Krista and I worked on that broadcast where we played with color. And this is how I played with the color palette that we talked about and I sent her for this piece. So I'm going to show you some of the former Odyssey projects that we've got, and then I'm going to put Krista's down in the center here, right? And then we're going to talk a little bit about how these go together, and I'm going to demo a couple of things for you, okay? Because the Odyssey really is a classic bead shop that was originated with Janice. And wax linen is really the basis of this project, but I've got a couple of other kind of twists and turns up my sleeve. So let's take a look at the originals right here, okay, or some of the originals. Okay, let me get over here. Let me put my glasses on so I can see. Let me move my phone out of the shot so you're not distracted. There we go. It was kind of a busy morning around here, so I don't feel like I'm as collected as I should be here, so thank you for bearing with me. Okay, there we go. Now this is a piece that Janice started, and Janice can chime in a little bit more with the background on it, but it's done on waxed linen, Irish wax linen. And Irish wax linen, if you haven't used it, this is a thread that one of the very first things I started stringing on in my tenure at the bead shop when we were a brick and mortar. This has, again, it has such a tactile feel. It's a natural fiber. I love it. Anita's asking over in the Facebook feed, she says, can you use hemp cord as well? Sure, Anita, you can use anything on this. Really, whatever floats your boat. That's the beauty of this piece. And you can see Gita, of course. Gita, you're such a good detective, found the color palette broadcast with Krista. She posted it in the Facebook feed as well as in the YouTube feed. It's worth a watch if you haven't seen it. So the Irish wax linen is really the basis for this project. And the beautiful thing about the wax linen is you can see when I unfurl it here, okay, and it is a 4-ply. So you could, and all 4 of these plies are also pretty strong. Okay, can you see how that's a 4-ply there? So you could fringe with this. You could, put beads on just the single 4-plies, then bring them back together and continue with the single ply. All of this stuff will happen. And Janice said it's a project that just came to her. She loves the wax linen, and it was about the time of the tin cup necklace, and she says anyone could have come up with this. Well, that perhaps is true, Janice, but you did, I think, a really beautiful, as I think we all are down with, a beautiful rendition of this. It's really easy and it's really fun. So this is the wax linen, and we carry the wax linen in a variety of colors. So the way that the Odyssey project started, and it's this one here. Let me get in a little bit more tight here. And yeah, Faye is just joining us. Faye, I thought you were here earlier, but I did give you a shout out to the color palette you posted, and that's the I'm gonna email you about it later because that's my inspiration for my mini mix for July. This is one of the original ones here, okay, and you can see it's one bead. It's the cube. It's that SB3 3mm cube and knots. That's it. That's all it is. And look at how easy this goes together. Okay, that's it. Just one bead. Easy, easy peasy. Now Janice also made this, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to be a wrap, right? So if you're looking for something that is a fast and easy wrap, right, this could not be easier. It's knots and one bead and a button. That's it. So so that's kind of how it started, and it went through some different incarnations, right? And then we did some kits, and it was for Mother's Day. I don't know how many years ago this was now, Janice. Mother's Day 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, where we did the Lydia and the Gwen projects in homage to our mothers. So the Gwen was this blue, because my mom loves kind of this, any blue from Montana to teal, right? And this kind of tea rose pink was the Lydia after Janice's mother, Lydia. And again, so we added another bead to this. So it's a 6/0. There we go. It's a 6/0 and a Hishi bead. And that Hishi is that little round donut. Could be an O bead, could be a bunch of things, right? But that bead just slides along. Okay, so this could be, again, super easy to do. You don't have to make a lot of bead choices, right? One bead, some kind of a spacer, and again, a button. That's it. Okay, so that's it. This is, and the wax linen, especially, I see a lot of people saying you're beginners. The wax linen is delicious. It really is. It's so easy to string with, and you're gonna see. I'm gonna play around with it for a little bit. You know, Kim's asking, how come my mom never got the necklace? I think my mom got a kit and was supposed to string her own darn necklace. So, but I don't know. I don't know if she ever did. But she just likes to stir the beads around, really. So, then I did on one of our Free Tip Fridays. This was way back when we first started the monthly mixes. I'm going to get in a little bit bigger, a little bit wider there. And I think this was the creamsicle, or no, strawberry lemonade is what it was called, right? So I used the first monthly mix, I think that was the first one, and I created this Odyssey-like piece. But you could see I added some other stuff to this. So again, Odyssey-like, right? It's that same technique, right, with the macrame and the button here. But you can see what I used. Well, you can't see, but I'm going to show you. I used 4mm CKC, which is right here, right? The Chinese knotting cord. And you can see I didn't even knot it. I just looped it through these little shadows. It's a free tip Friday, really early on it's there. And I think it's somewhere on the website, maybe under monthly mix projects too. But you can see, so there's a size 4 CKC, Chinese knotting cord. Here's a couple of strands of the wax linen that I just knotted together and just randomly strung some business on there, right? And then knotted it, right? So each of these strands could be, and the way I kind of looked at it was, each of these strands could be their own necklace. Let me try and undo this or unknot it a little bit. They get a little tangled. So that's the CKC here. That's the Irish wax linen here. Then I threw all caution to the wind and used regular seal-on. See how that's just regular seal-on with a single knot? Let me see if I can get it. There we go. That's all that is, right? And that's a size 11. And wouldn't this be fun, just doing the Odyssey with just CKC and size 11 seed beads? Take a little bit longer, but it would have a totally different look for that. Okay, I love just how this simple strand looks. Then I used a double strand of that CKC, that orange. I think it's just orange, Chinese knotting cord, and some of the beads from the mix. And then lastly, I threw in, because why not? You know, I love leather cord. I just did the, I think this is 1 millimeter natural leather, and I silk wrapped along the leather just to add a little bit of color. Okay, so this, you don't have to Odyssey with just wax linen. You could use whatever, you know, you do you. You're in charge of your game. Okay, but I like the way that the multiple textures of thread really add a lot of visual interest to that. So that happened. Then, oh, and I see that Gita linked. This is the one that I did on, and some of you may have seen me, I do periodic appearances, I guess, on the PBS show Beads, Baubles, and Jewels with my buddy Katie Hacker. I've been doing that for quite a few years now. And this was the Odyssey necklace that I built for Beads, Baubles, and Jewels. And so Gita linked it over in the on the Facebook feed, but I think it's on our, I think I have it linked on our YouTube channel. If I don't, you can just search Beads, Baubles, and Jewels also on YouTube, and it will come up. But I wanted to, a lot of times when we make our Odyssey projects here at Beadshop, we make them in kind of a monochromatic, kind of a simple way, right? Not simple, but streamlined and sleek, kind of, right? Well, for this one, for this particular one, I wanted, we hadn't used the sage. I think this is the sage wax linen, Irish wax linen. And I wanted to use my very favorite bead in the whole wide world, which is this shadow bead. And then I wanted to kind of have a nod to the original one that we did. This, so I used the cube, the mustard cube. And then we have this lone little 8 millimeter hex, I think it's the seafoam hex bead. And so that's so that was the color palette for this one. And again, you could wrap it multiple times as a bracelet, or it looks super smashing as a necklace. Okay, so it's really so this one was a lot of fun, and I loved kind of the unusual color palette. That pop of mustard I think really makes this look, you know, if you know kind of my jewelry aesthetic, I like it. Oh, it is sage, thank you, Janice, is this color. If you know my jewelry design aesthetic at all, you know I like my pieces to kind of look like they've been unearthed in kind of an archaeological dig, right? So this is kind of has that feel about it, right? So so that was this guy here, and I want you to notice on the ends. Sometimes I think the opening and the closing of these pieces is sometimes difficult for people to figure out. This one, I just, like so many of the Odyssey projects, I just, the strands come up, they go around through the button, and then back down, and then I just made a little tassel, so that goes down to the back. Okay. Now, this has evolved. So when I spoke to Krista, this was before Shelter in Place, I think. So it was back sometime in early March. I said, Krista, you've got to do a project for us. And she kindly agreed to do that. And she said, gosh, I don't know I don't know. So we kind of went and we pulled some beads. We got our hands on the beads. And I wanted to pull, number one, I needed to, not in a bad way at all, but I'm all girl. We can't have 500 different beads in this thing. So we've got to streamline it a little bit, right? So we did. And again, it's that Coco Chanel mindset of let's throw everything at the design and continue to kind of pull things back a little bit, to see, so we could kind of see the forest, the beads for the forest, you know what I mean? And so I know that Krista loves this red, so we chose the country red as kind of the base. And I think that actually may be the first thing that we chose was this color, maybe. I could be making that up, but it's my story, so I'm gonna tell it. But this country red, this is kind of the basis for all of that. And then as you kind of slowly build into the different beads, you can kind of start to see how it came together. So I'm going to get a little tighter in here. Someone was asking also about the, whoops, sorry. Let me get a little tighter here. There we go. About the beads, baubles, and jewels. If you get Create TV, some of you may get it on your cable package. It's Beads, Baubles, and Jewels. All the seasons are also on Create television, so you can also find it there. You can also go to the website too. And so let's kind of break it down. I've got some of the pieces here. I don't have them all, I'll be honest, but I've got some of the main focal points. And so I wanted this piece, or we wanted, I don't want to speak for Krista, but we wanted this piece. Yeah, I was just going to say, you're reading my mind. Get out of my head, Hennessy. She had to have these drops, right? She's like, I want this to have some texture. So this is one of our check drops, and we carry them in a multitude of colors, but I just love this. And you can go to Beadshop to the project. I should go right over to it so I can see the materials list, but it's all there. It's all listed there. If you go under, easiest place to find it is if you can start by going under live broadcasts, and you can find Summer Vine is the name of this project. So the drops are the purple matte iris drops, right? And they have a lot, you can see even on the camera, they've got a lot of life to them, okay? And so these purple drops are kind of the standout bead, are kind of the bead that gives this all kind of a pop. So I'm going to put this to the side, okay? And I'm going to put in kind of a little bit of the monochromatic business that we pulled from this. Krista used her version. I don't know if any of you remember that wonderful trunk show that we did with Dakota Stones. We're going to do another one, but these are these huge, I don't know, 12 millimeter maybe these are. That was from the Dakota Stones Trunk Show, but you could use this 8mm carnelian instead, right? And so we built kind of a monochrome. We used these red wine rondelles, right? That's the red. We used, I think, this brick. And you know, I didn't consult the project while I was pulling these. I thought they were the persimmon, but it's actually the dyed fuchsia, I think, is what we used in here. Let me see. Yeah, the silver line dyed magenta. But I also pulled, this is the 4244. It's the silver lined dyed persimmon, which is also beautiful. I also pulled, and I don't think we had it in here either, but this is another monochrome. It was the terracotta, right? And so then when you put in a kicker of this purple, look at what that purple just does. And I also grabbed, this is that in the hyacinth mix. It's one of our new ones. It's the 6-649. You could even add a little more blue into there, that blue purple green, blue purpley kind of color. You could also send it in the direction. I pulled the silver, the denim. It's the 4244, another new one. So look at that, how cool that looks there. Okay. And then there was a couple of other, what I also loved was Krista also made some other suggestions besides this carnelian, which I think looks great with this purple. This is the 10mm. I want to see it so you guys can see it. The English cut. It's the red Picasso. And again, the camera doesn't do it as much justice, but this would really give it kind of a little bit of an irregular rustic look. I love it. You could also use, which I think would be really killer, is you could use these Carnelian Nuggets, which would give this thing a whole other air to it, right? It would be pretty cool. Now, Krista used the Happy Donut bead, which is here, one of our faves in copper. And she also used the Sixth Sense, which I also dig, which is also in copper. I pulled, I'm going to pull this one out. I'm going to pull that one back in because I love the way that this English cut looks with it. I also pulled, this is called Temple. It's a strand, it's a brass, natural brass, not plated at all. I don't know if you guys can see the little, it looks like a little gear almost. If you haven't seen it in person, or you don't have this in your stash, get familiar. I use these a lot. I probably don't use them as much as I should. I just love them. You could also use the plain tribal hishi, which looks great. Krista went with the copper, but the brass looks just as delicious. Or you could use that tribal hishi in a little bit of a shinier copper. I guess what I'm trying to say with all of these substitutions and all of these colors is don't stress about your choices, right? Create your color palette here. And if we look at this palette and then we look at to how it's translated in the piece, you know, you have to, I say this a lot, you kind of have to trust your choices, that your choices in your bead mix will translate and play nicely in the piece that you've made. Now, let's take a look at what Krista's done here. Let's break it down for you. You can see in, and Tammy's saying the temple brass are her favorite. She uses it in place of knotting in between beads, which is great. I love it. If you go to the project page, the Summer Vine project page, and you scroll down, you'll be able to see the project map, and you'll be able to see it all laid out, how Krista did it. But this is, you know, it's rust color, it's plum, it's kind of, you know, deep reds or cranberries. So what she did here, we'll break it down, is you start, let me see how many strands this is. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 strands here, right? So what you do, and I'm going to use this purple because it's one that we're at the end of the road with, so I don't want to waste any cord. But essentially, if it's 8 strands, you would cut 4, I'm not even in the thing, sorry about that. You'd cut 4, or however many you want. This one I think has 10 strands, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? 10 strands here. So that means you would cut 5 long strands, but for Krista's you'd cut 4. So, and this is not to scale, but I'm just gonna kind of show you this real quick. You cut these long strands, and it must say, I'm gonna measure this so you've got an idea. And especially if it's a necklace, you know, you want to be kind of generous. So let me take this off camera just real quick. Sorry about that. I'm going to measure. This necklace door to door measures about 24 inches. So I would say that you would need, I would cut these at about 54 or 55 inches long, I think, right? Because you're going to double them over. So that's what this looks like. Let me get back in frame here. So if these were 55 inches long, I would cut 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Then I'd cut it off. Then I would center it, find the center here. I'm going to use one of my pins. I'm working on my macrame board. Let me clear, this is a gigantic mess. You can see what Krista did here. She macrameed around, brought it together, and macrameed down. Okay, so that flat macrame knot, all you would do is we start in the center. And you've seen me do this. I know some of you are new here to this, but this macrame flat knot is a real staple in a lot of things we do. You can see this board is still set up from my macrameing last week. So let me get all of this off of here. And then you just select your strand or your color. Now you could have this all be at the same, Janice is saying double them through the button so it's twice as long as the necklace. Yeah, Janice is saying about 60 inches. It's true, Janice, for knotting and stuff. I think 60 inches is probably a good way to go. I was maybe a little too conservative. But again, I'm going to macrame here down the center. Okay, so we're going to start with our loop. But you need to have your button already chosen, so you need to make sure that that button is going to fit. Okay, so I'm going to macrame. I'm just going to kind of use what I have here, and it's going to go quickly. This is Chinese knotting cord. So you could use Chinese knotting cord. This is Chinese knotting cord 0.5. So it'll go kind of quickly. here. Krista used wax linen for both here. You can see here I used wax linen for the base and regular Ceylon for the macrame. So you find your center, and we're just going to macrame this down just really very briefly. I'm not even going to do the whole thing. But we've got great tutorials on doing the flat macrame. I should do this with the board the other way. I'm going to do that. I'm going to turn this to the side. There we go. So I can make sure that everything is tamped, fastened down here nicely. Because when you're macrameing, you want everything, whoops, to be nice and tight so your macrame will sit nicely. So I'm just going to do this real quick, and I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you just do your macrame flat knot, and this is what's going to be your loop, right? And we're going to macrame and macrame and macrame. Again, this is 0.5 millimeter Chinese knotting cord. There we go. Krista's saying she was even more generous with her cutting because she likes to mess up on the length. She cut 78 inches and then doubled it over, because the knots always take up more room than you think. And I want to show you how she did this, because some of the strands are doubled and some are actually tripled over. Okay, so you can see, I do this flat, and I continue to do this flat knot until it was long enough to form my loop and my button would fit through. Okay, so macrame, macrame, macrame. After we've macramed, and we'll pretend that this has all been macramed here, right, comes around, you'd flip this over and I'm just going to pin this there with the pin that I seem to have lost. There it is. And you just bring this together and macrame all of these together. And again, what Krista used was waxed linen, but you could use anything for this macrame flat knot. Okay, and just macrame it down as far as you want to go. Now, to make this stay, you could leave these ends. If you were macrameing with wax linen, you could macrame with something super long, right, and incorporate it into your piece if you wanted. But if I were going to get rid of these threads, I would get my GS hypo cement and I'd add a little bit there. Okay, just a drop or two. Then I'd try and get the lid back on, which we all know is the great struggle here of hypo cement. There we go. At least I think it's in. Bear with me here for just a second. There we go. And now that's also given that a moment to set a little bit. Okay. And then I would just continue to macrame a little bit over that glue. So it glues that down. And then, I'm going to open this back up. I'd add a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue here. I'd turn it over, do it on the other side, and I'd let that sit overnight. And then I'd cut the ends away, and you should be fine. Okay. So I'm just going to let that sit. You can continue to work on the piece, just keep those strands out of the way. Okay. So now let me widen this up a little bit. And you can't mess up on this, right? So now you've got like 10 strands of, did my mom text you? Mm-hmm. All right, Ma. I meant to put one on. My mom does these texts to Chris and says, that cat scratch on your hand is not pretty, put a Band-Aid on it. So thanks, Ma. I meant to do that earlier. Alfie was outside and we were trying to catch him and he didn't want to be caught, so he left me the tiniest of souvenirs, that naughty kitty. Anyway, so here are all my strands, right? And obviously this would be a lot longer, right? If it was, 60 inches, this would be 30 inches worth of strands, okay, worth of thread. So I'm going to clip everything so it's open, because I haven't done that yet, right? From going back and forth, back and forth. So I'll just clip these open. They don't all have to be the same length right here, right? And then you want to make some decisions on how you want to string them. So let's look at Krista's and see what she did. So she's here, right? She's done this. She's done her loop, right? Let me get in a little tighter. Now, you can see here this one, this strand. This comes together. She decided that these gigantic carnelian that had really big holes needed a thicker cord, right? So she just said, I'm just going to knot these three together and they're going to float. So she took 3, which I'll do over here, 1, 2, 3, and tied a knot, right? And then here, I don't know, maybe somewhere in here. So let's tie the knot. All we do is we take the loop, we make a loop like this, pass the ends through the loop. The cool thing about the wax linen is also you can kind of compact it together so it's like one thread. Okay, so you can do that, make that overhand knot, and then wherever it lands, you guys, it lands. You could, I'm going to actually pretend that it's been 24 hours and cut these ends away because they're bugging me. But you wouldn't cut them this quick, or you could thread burn them if they were the CKC. Okay. So here, you could use your awl to help you move that knot. But when you're tying multiple strands of this, wax linen, you just want to treat them all as one, okay, and then put that out. All right, now you just add your bead. In this case, it was a large hole bead that she put on. And do I have something that's a big hole? This isn't in the piece at all, but I have one of these large hole pearls on here. So I'm going to use that because this is just a mock-up to show you the technique. Then just tie another knot wherever you want it to go. All 3 of those strands together. Use your awl or your knotting tweezer if you need to. And that's it. And so you can see these, the sections are a little bit longer, but that's how this was done. So Krista's next strand I don't know if it was her next one, but I'm going to say it's the next one. She just did the drops. So can you see how it's not a mishmash of techniques? Each strand, like I was saying earlier with the other one, each strand could be worn separately. Okay, so this has the drops, right? So again, starting up here, and this was just a single strander. So I think what she did was she just tied a knot just for funsies up here. Like so. And on each side of this drop is an A-dot, right? So you string on, look, I happen to have one lone drop sitting here from another project. Again, not in the colorway. But grab an A-dot. In this case, I'm going to use a cube because again, look, I've got this little random bag of random business here. So you can just throw those on. And again, use that wax to pull it down to the end so the thread acts like a needle. Then this just goes on, and then I can see that these aren't evenly knotted, so just find a plate, leave a little space, leave a little thread space, make a knot. There it is, bam. And then you just continue to do that, okay, on that strand. Now the next strand that Krista did, she used the rondelles, and again it's that big knotting. She hasn't knotted right up against here, right? So a knot, and then she was consistent with the pattern. So here's the second or the third strand of the pattern. A-dot, 5mm rondelle, and the 6th sense. She used, and what she said, the 6th sense hex bead, it echoed the hex shape of the button that she chose. So it kind of, you know, has that same stylistically, kind of, it speaks to each other. So again, a knot, string on your pattern, a knot, and then she continued that pattern on throughout the strand. Same here with this one. And this pattern was an 8, a 6, a 5mm rondelle, a 6, and then an 8. And again, a lot of loose, so it moves around on the piece. And then, same thing here. And this I really like. I like that this almost feels like it's half a pattern, right? What you might want to do, or have a tendency to do, is be symmetrical here by having the A-dot, the happy donut, then the 8mm rondelle, and then the donut and the 8mm. What Krista did was she jumped in, rondelle, donut, 8mm, and kept that going on. So it lends a little bit of interest to the eye, and it's unexpected because here you have those symmetrical patterns. Here's an asymmetrical pattern, right? Then another bout of drops. Hex bead, very simple. And drop, right? Hex bead with the 8-aughts and a drop, okay? Then last but not least, she finished it up with another symmetrical pattern with her 8-aught. So you can see that when the piece is completely laid out, and I'll get that, you understand how this goes, right? So when this is laid out and the beads are kind of all together, you can't tell that each strand has one specific style of stringing on it. right? Which is cool. I really like that. It has kind of that jumbled look, but when you isolate each strand, you can see that each strand is its own thing. And that also helps you, I think, with spacing and balance as well. Okay. Then to close it, all Krista did was she came around and she went into the button. So if we were all done stringing here, right, we would take our button, and let's say if you have a button that has a smaller shank, that's okay. You can kind of just bring a few through and not have them all go through. Put as many through as will work. Let me take some of these out. Then you'd come back down and around, and then you'd just incorporate the threads that didn't work underneath your macrame, and then you'd cut those away, cut those extra away, if that makes sense. Then she left her little tassels, and she just left them unadorned. Little tassels here on the end. Okay, so you can add beads or not. So it's very, very easy. You know, just figure out the number of strands that you want to use. You can make it a fuller piece or a more streamlined piece. You can add a variety of beads, as Krista did here, or a lesser variety, as I did in this one. You could add a variety of threads, like I did here. Two beads, like a cube or a 6/0 or even an 8/0 with a spacer, like we did here. Or with our very traditional Odyssey that we first started with just the wax linen and the cube. However it works for you. I'm going to get a little tighter on this so you can kind of see. This is the part where you screenshot it. There you go. Pretty, I think. Okay. So it just depends, this is a definite project where you do you. Okay. It really, you can go from super embellished all the way down to just a single bead. And you know, if you're jumping into a project, if this is one of your first projects, go to the Odyssey project page over on beadshop.com. Janice has a great handout for it. We've done several live broadcasts for it, and I might start at the beginning with something that is a little more simple here, and then move yourself into the bigger ones. And at the end, what Krista did was, when she just came back in and did the flat macrame, I think, Krista, all you did was cut away the ends at some different lengths so that your tassel wasn't all the way, you know, all the same length. And I'm looking, the flight of the butterfly, someone's asking me about the flight of the butterfly project. What? I'm going to have to look it up real quick. Let me see what that was. Let me see if I can. Was it an Odyssey project that I missed? Let me see. Let me see if I can find it fast. And I didn't even type in the right place. Let me see. We have so many projects. Oh, I can't believe I forgot that one, JP. I do. Gosh, thank you for reminding me. I can't believe I forgot that. Let me show you this. This is kind of an important one as well. Thank you to whoever reminded me of this. I thought, you know why? It's because it's sitting in here in the Facebook room and not with all of the and not with all the archive stuff on the wall. So let me show you this. Janice did also an updating, and you guys can check it out here. The Flight of the Butterfly necklace, I'm going to put it in here for this. And I can't remember when we did it, honestly. It must have been sometime last year. It's also a take very similar to this this one that I did with the creamsicle. And thank you, Gita, for reminding me. This is a way to take your Odyssey piece even further. And you can see it started the same way. Let me bring this on this end here. So yeah, thank you again, Gita, for reminding me of this. It's a good one to show with this. So this was started pretty much the same way, gathering all of your threads, doing the flat macrame. Janice brought it all underneath here, kind of poetry style, under one of the rollers. And then you can see if I kind of take, let me untangle this a little bit. If I isolate the strands here, we've got a lot of different techniques. We've got, these are the, let me get a little tighter so you can see it. This is just with bugle beads and check cubes. This is on the Ceylon. Here is that same, that 8/0 on the wax linen. More bugles and 11/0. I love how 11/0 look in these projects. This is on fine Ceylon, this one here. This one has the coins also strung on the wax linen. This one just has, this is on leather, the 1mm leather, and it's macrame over the top, and then it has the bugles along the side. And then this is just a knotted strand, a simple knotted strand of leather. So again, this one's strung in the, each strand is an individual style, and each strand could stand on its own. But she also added a super luscious tassel on this, and see how she finished it. I want to show you how the strands, everything just comes through the button here. Macrame, 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 button is slid on, and then macrame, macrame, macrame here. So it isn't even a loop. Okay. But all of the threads that she uses come back and are created with a really super lush tassel. So I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me about that, you guys. I'm gonna put it in in the right place in our archive so I don't forget it. So let me show you these two kind of side by side. Let's revisit that picture of the Odysseys here. I'll put that one there. These guys here. And then I'll widen it up so we can have that last look again. But wherever you fall on this Odyssey project spectrum, it'll come out looking delicious, I think, right? And so decide the length, make sure that you have a tape measure, you guys, and measure your length and see, essentially Like if I were doing mine, I would want mine to hit me, I don't know, maybe at about 24 inches. So I'd have to double that over. So that would be 48. Plus I want a lot of extra for all the knotting and stuff. So I would cut my strand to double over at least 60 inches. Okay, and the wax linen is not expensive, and it comes, you can buy it in several ways. You can buy it, well, two ways. You can buy it by the spool, we have full spools, or what we call nests, which is a 10-yard nest, and you have plenty there to create with. So it's not very dear. So there it is. Gita, again, thank you so much for reminding me about that, and thank goodness I had it hanging right here next to me because it's so pretty. So that's it. And this really, this is great to utilize your monthly mixes with. This is a great one for stash diving, but you can also go to beadshop.com, and I'll flash it over here now, for information on the project and the products from this broadcast. And make sure, you guys, if you have not, I know that there's so many new people who are watching with us this week, which is great. It's so great to have you. Watch our newsletters, because that's where we announce a lot of our newer things, new product launches and stuff as well. I'm trying to center my phone in here. This is the project, and we've posted it on our social. We've got a whole bunch of really cool brand new findings from TiaraCast. On Friday I'm going to be talking about my beloved brick stitch, okay, and we're going to be using some of these new findings. I've been, as Chris and I sit down at night and watch a little television, I've been playing around with some different brick stitch styles with these. So I'm going to have some new ideas for you with the brick stitch on Friday. So make sure that you that you check your newsletter so you can see it all. I don't have a photo of Faye's inspiration photo for my monthly, my little mini mix that I'm doing, but you guys are just going to have to stay tuned to the newsletter for that, because that's coming up. I don't think you guys are going to want to miss it. It's going to be really fun. So again, thank you all for joining me today on this Odyssey. Krista, thank you so much for creating this really amazing and wonderful project that we call Summer Vine. It's really fantastic. So thank you. And thanks everybody for joining me here on our Beadshop Live broadcast. I will be back on Friday, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, to play around with some brick stitch ideas all around those new findings. You can find all of those new findings from TiaraCast. Best place to look right now, if you're watching this live, it's June 10th. Gosh, this year, you guys, 2020. What a year. It's June 10th already. You can find it in our Just In section, and we've got the round hoops, we've got the drop hoops, we've got the little puffy rondelle beads, we've got a lot of those daggers, all of that. So I think you guys are really going to dig the earrings that I make on Friday. If earrings aren't your bag, you can totally use them as pendants. They'd be great, also strung. So that's it. Stay safe out there. Use your common sense. I know that it's rough still, but we're doing okay. We're getting through this. And unity and listening and hand washing are all super important right now. So have a fantastic day, everybody, and I will see you on Friday for Free Tip Friday. Again, thank you so much for your support. Without you guys, our small woman-owned business right here in the heart of Silicon Valley in California would not be able to survive without you. So we appreciate appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys on Friday. Bye, everybody.